A decade ago, we made an unwavering commitment to the United Nations, a decade of action for road safety, to reduce road fatalities and injuries by 50% by 2020. This goal was further reaffirmed in our National Development Plan, which enjoins us to reduce injury, accidents, and violence by half from 2010 levels. Regrettably, very little progress has been made towards the realization of this goal. While this trend is by no means uniquely South African, the carnage on our roads remains unacceptably high. The number of people who lose their life and limb on our roads is alarming, and the cost of the economy is in excess of 168 billion rand. This reality has spurred us into action and has inspired us to reimagine traffic safety on South Africa's roads. At the beginning of the festive season, we set ourselves a target of reducing road crashes and fatalities by 10% during the festive season. We have made substantial progress towards the realization of this target during this period, from 1st December 2019 to 15 January 2020, when schools reopened. Following the launch of our 365 days action agenda, which was launched by the President of the Republic, Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, in October 2019, which constitutes a reimagination of our approach to traffic safety. We raised the bar and executed a very high-profile Arrive Alive campaign. This was underpinned by highly visible integrated law enforcement operations, stakeholder participation, effective communications, and road safety activations. We even employed guerrilla tactics by conducting operations at places and times when those motorists likely to violate the law least expected us. The cardinal pillars of our reimagined traffic safety strategy include sustained intensity of law enforcement activities throughout the year, intensification of our anti-corruption interventions, a centralized chain of command across all spheres of government, and traffic law enforcement 24 hours, 7 days a week. We will therefore aggressively undertake traffic law enforcement 24/7 wire. Premised on these efforts, the number of vehicles that were stopped and checked over the festive period increased from 1.3 million in the previous period to 1.5 million. Roadblocks conducted nationwide increased from 775 previously to 1,924. More than 507,3147. 573,147 motorists were issued with traffic fines. The number of traffic fines issued decreased by 191,862 as a result of increased compliance with road regulations by motorists. The number of discontinued vehicles increased from 4.16 to 6,358, and vehicles that were impounded increased from 2,967 to 3,814. The most common offenses for which traffic fines were issued were speeding at 58,669 fines, driving without a license with 26,516 fines. Driving without fastening seatbelt accounted for 25,786 fines. Driving unlicensed vehicles at 32,481, and fines for driving cars worn tires were 13,311. This was made possible through effective planning and coordination, as well as sacrifices of our law enforcement officers, who gave up their family time to put their shoulders behind the wheel, making South African roads safer. It is also appropriate at this stage to send our heartfelt condolences to all the families, friends, and relatives of the people who died on the roads, and wish those who were injured a speedy recovery. Our analysis demonstrates that we have made progress. We can see a flickering light at the end of the tunnel. The light is indeed a ray of sunshine and not an oncoming train. However, we are still a long way from celebrating, and more still needs to be done before we can declare that we have turned the corner. Too many people still die on our roads. Although our festive season campaign was robust and inspiring, it was also impacted upon by heavy rains that we experienced in the second half of December and early January, particularly in Gauteng, Mpumalanga, Northwest, Northern Cape, and Free State. This resulted in a 4.8% increase in road and environment as contributory factors to crashes and fatalities. Human factor as a contributor decreased by 8%, a demonstration of the success of visible law enforcement and improved compliance by motorists. Vehicle factors increased by 2.5% as a result of collisions involving Malaysians who drove heavily loaded and unroadworthy vehicles to our neighboring countries. Another key phenomenon observed involved crashes occurring on routes that were not previously identified as hazardous. This was as a result of some errant motorists choosing to use these routes to avoid detection by law enforcement officers. Our analysis further demonstrates that the main cause of fatal crashes over this period were pedestrians, single vehicle overturning, hit and run, and head-on collisions. Vehicles mostly involved in fatal crashes were light motor cars at 42%, light delivery vehicles at 20%, and minibuses or kumbis at 9%. The fact that minibuses have contributed less than 10%, the fatal crashes confirms the success of Operation Tlhokomela, which is an initiative of the taxi industry, and again shows that law enforcement operations focused on the public transport are bearing result and fruit. The majority of road users who died on the roads were pedestrians, 40%, passengers, 34%, drivers, 25%, and cyclists, 1%. We have adopted a zero tolerance to fraud and corruption, drunken driving, speeding, and the results speak for themselves. 85 people, including traffic officers, vehicles testing station staff, and ordinary motorists were arrested on charges of bribery, fraud, and forgery. 3 vehicle testing stations in Limpopo were shut down as a result of the anti-corruption investigations undertaken to eliminate the fraudulent issuing of vehicle roadworthy certificates. 6 law enforcers, namely 3 members of the South African Police Service, 1 member of the South African Defence Force, a member of the Correctional Services, and security officers were arrested in the Eastern Cape for drunken driving. A medical doctor was also arrested in Gauteng after involvement in a collision and was found to be under the influence of alcohol in the blood. It is unacceptable that law enforcement officials should be found breaking the law, and we call on the courts to consider their careers as an aggravating factor and give them the toughest sentences possible. A total of 9,414 motorists were arrested for various offenses, including, among others, drunken driving, speeding, reckless and negligent driving, and arrested also for outstanding warrants. The efforts that were put into making the festive season a safer period in which to travel resulted in a massive reduction in the number of major fatal crashes or collisions, with 5 or more fatalities. These crashes were reduced from 27 in the 2018-19 festive season to only 13 in the period under review. This resulted in 76 fatalities from major crashes as opposed to 182 in 2018-19. In total, the number of fatal crashes were reduced by 3%, from 1,438 in 2018-19 to 1,390 in 2019-2020. This resulted in a 10% reduction in the number of fatalities from 1,789 fatalities in 2018-19 to 1,617 fatalities in 2019-20 festive season. The province that recorded the highest reduction in fatalities is the Free State, which experienced a 35% decline, followed by Mpumalanga with 23% decline, and Western Cape with 19% decline. The Northwest recorded a 16% decline, Northern Cape 13% decline, Eastern Cape 7% decline, and KwaZulu-Natal 5% decline. Increases were recorded in Limpopo, where fatalities increased by 12%, and in Gauteng, where they increased by 1%. As a consequence, 111 people died on the roads in the Free State, 144 in Mpumalanga, 136 in the Western Cape, 110 in Northwest, 49 in the Northern Cape, 242 in the Eastern Cape, 354 in KwaZulu-Natal, 217 in Limpopo, and 254 in Gauteng. Officers from the Free State, Mpumalanga, and Western Cape deserve awards for a job well done. Their sterling work assisted us to meet our target we had set ourselves this year. If we are to arrest the carnage on our roads and keep our roads safe, we require a paradigm shift from those charged with this important task on the N1 in the Free State. Officer Vuyokazi in Tsantsa discontinued the highest number of vehicles while deployed in KwaZulu-Natal by the National Traffic Police. National Traffic Anti-Corruption Unit, entire team, and in particular investigator Lehasa Muloi, also deserve recognition for the excellent work done to combat fraud and corruption within the traffic law enforcement fraternity. We also salute Deputy Director Jaka, Superintendent Maluleke, and Sergeant Mtembu from the Joburg Metro Police for assisting stranded motorists to change flat tires on the freeways. I also thank JMPD officer Mkonwana and his crew for assisting a panicking and teary old lady to find a way out of Johannesburg to Pretoria. We are proud to have such officers in our ranks. These are true heroes who embody the spirit of Batupili. They believe in the phrase that says, I quote, "Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country," close quote. We need more officers of this caliber in our traffic fraternity. The tireless efforts of our officers has yielded positive results in tracing down a recalcitrant driver who has no regard for the law, as he flagrantly drove at 300 kilometers per hour and evaded our law enforcement. We are in hot pursuit of this offender. Very soon we'll be paying him a visit in Midrand. He has no account for his irresponsible conduct, and once he had done that, he'd bravely and proudly so become a celebrity on Twitter and everywhere and post this irresponsible, reckless behavior to our motorist. We'll never leave him. We have traced him and we have found him. We'll bring him to book. We thank Sandra and the NTP, the National Traffic Police, for this sterling work. We are aware that our success is not due to the performance of a few, but lies in the collaborative efforts of all our traffic officers, members of the South African Police Service, emergency medical personnel, the taxi industry, religious organizations, and the non-governmental sector. I therefore thank everyone for work well done in this festive season. Let me also send a word of gratitude to aware.org for their continued support. The media fraternity, who have played a pivotal role in popularizing our campaign and who are with us day and night, where we're undertaking the campaign to conscientize and mobilize society behind the campaign of Arrive Alive. I also want to thank my colleagues, even though I don't have to thank the fish for swimming, our MECs who were also out there in the roads with our officers day and night, encouraging them and marshalling them to action to ensure that our roads, our people are safe this festive season. All motorists who behaved themselves on the roads as well, we thank them over this period. I would also like to remind you all that the Arrive Alive campaign continues. Remember that we have committed ourselves to a 365-day, 24/7 road safety program, and we must sustain this success every day. Therefore, Mushito utswela pele, waya waya. We are now inspired to go back and plan for Easter peak, a travel period with renewed vigor, because we now understand what we are capable of if we put our collective shoulder to the wheel. Together we can make a difference. The Greek philosopher Aristotle eloquently described the task that confronts us when he said, I quote, we are what we repeatedly do, excellence. Then is not an act, but a habit, close quote. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. Indeed, one death, as you like to say, is one too many. But I think having seen the statistics, the trajectory is looking good. It looks as if we are indeed in the right direction. We had set ourselves a target of a 10% decrease in the road fatalities over the festive season, and indeed the 10% target has been reached. It is no small feat, and we congratulate all those who worked alongside you to make it happen. Ladies and gentlemen, I now